There was a moment in the second half where, the Blues had some sort of momentum. They put a kick deep in the in-goal, and somehow Coates races out because Connor Watson led the chase by himself. How is that possible in an Origin decider that you don't have that energy?
Welcome to a special edition of the Code NRL Show here at Accor Stadium in the wake of what was a disastrous night if you are a New South Wales Blues fan, which myself and Michael Carianis are. And then we have this pesky Queensland. Look at the smile on him, would you? This Queensland supporter named Brent Reid, Michael Carianis. Guys, this is a game. This is a series, boys. This is a series that I thought New South Wales had in the bag. Led 1-0 with that unbelievable road trip that it is going to Suncorp. They led 1-0, go to Perth. And it just all went downhill from there, guys. Queensland, they've done it again.
Well, that's the thing for me, Dave. I mean, this was basically the unlosable series. After Origin 1, winning at Suncorp, they went to Perth, a place where they've only ever won New South Wales and won handsomely. They lose that, then they come to New South Wales to Accor Stadium, 80,000 people. Queensland are $2.95 outsiders, and they put up a performance that, quite frankly, was insipid. I mean, disgusting was the adjective I use for it. And, they basically lost the unlosable. And there's going to be a lot of postmortems after this, a lot of, I imagine, recriminations, because we know how used blokes in the New South Wales media are.
Mate, you're part of it.
I'm part of it too, I am. Yeah, but I'm a Queenslander. It was just, if you're a New South Welshman, and we saw the fans start leaving with about 10 to go, 5 to go, you're just so bitterly disappointed. I call it the darkest day in New South Wales Origin history. And there's been some bad performances over the years. 5 years ago, they lost to apparently the worst side of all time. But I think this, given the circumstances, given they were on home turf, given they won in Suncorp, I think this goes beyond that. I think this is arguably their worst performance ever.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with Reedy in that, Dave, because even, let's reflect on the series as a whole. Game 1, they were just okay. Queensland were horrific. New South Wales weren't great, but, still won in Queensland, so they got the credit. And everyone thought, I thought that, they had this enormous upside in them off the back of that Game 1 performance. They were really poor in Game 2. They were diabolical out here in Sydney in Game 3. It was embarrassing. It was inept. And it was a performance that's going to haunt these players for a very long time.
Guys, there's so many layers to this loss for New South Wales. For me, I think the loss of Mitchell Moses was so significant now in hindsight. I think in Origin 3, the kicking game was so focused on Nathan Cleary, and when it wasn't working, he turned to Luai, and Luai came up with some plays that I'm sure he would like again. And Mitchell Moses has the ability to drag you off the back foot, and they would have loved him dearly. I think it was a huge turning point that Mitchell Moses was out of this side. What about you, Mick? Where do you find the holes in the Blues' performance as far as some key changes or selections?
Well, it's interesting because, as Reedy intimated, New South Wales usually eat their own after a loss, and an unchanged lineup after losing Game 2, and that's unheard of for New South Wales. And you need to sit there and look at some of the players that didn't play. And for mine, I would always pick James Tedesco, right? I just think he is in career best form. He's been outstanding, but that's not a long-term fix for what's going on for New South Wales at the moment. A few other players that were in and around the squad that didn't play, Kellen Kalamatangi was one. I think Blake Brayley has been the form hooker of the competition. His service is the best out of anyone in the game, and I think if you can get that half-second advantage in a game like Origin, I think that would help. But Mitch Moses obviously walked straight back into the side, and
Jacob Carraz was another one that went close.
But let's not sugarcoat. You're not just talking about Jerome Luai. You're talking about Nathan Cleary's performance as well when you talk about the halves, because I thought Jerome probably outplayed Nathan tonight, at least with the footy, because he tried to create something. He had some spark. I think the jury's still out about Nathan Cleary at this level.
For me, personnel is not the issue, because you put those two sides on paper, and that New South Wales side should win every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Right, the personnel is not the problem. They look to me tonight like a really poorly coached side. And that's hard to say when you've got Craig Bellamy on your coaching staff. But I think a lot of this attention is now going to fall on Laurie Daley. He's now coached in 4 deciders, I think, lost them all. And they just looked like they didn't know each other tonight,
But
like they were strangers.
Unfortunately, Rudy, if you are questioning Laurie Daly, you are also questioning Craig.
Craig's sort of in the back. I don't know how much hands-on coaching Craig's done with the footy team this week. I mean, I think Craig's got to be respectful. When Laurie's the coach of the team, he's got to keep his distance, some distance, I'd imagine. But as I said, they look like strangers tonight. And Mick's right. I mean, Jerome didn't have his best night, tried hard, but Nathan was anonymous. And we all spoke about it before this game. He needs to own Origin, and those questions are going to linger for 12 months now, and they're going to be hanging over him next year. And he'll be there next year. He's 27, right? He's the best player in the game. But this arena, he has not owned.
Yep.
And before you can be an all-time great, you need to own this arena. And he hasn't done it yet. And again, that question's going to linger for 12 months. I don't know how injured he was. I mean, there are blokes who were injured coming into this game. They always talk about carrying injured players into Origin. You can't do it. They've obviously carried some blokes into this game that carried injuries. He was probably one of them. So maybe there was a reason for it, a mitigating factor in the injury. But, they were just so bad.
Yep. Queensland, as far as... I just think this guy was the absolute story of the entire series, and that's Billy Slater. And it started in game one. Firstly, with his selection of Cameron Munster. Now, I didn't agree with this selection in the first play. Sorry, I'm going to go back there. It started with his selection of Daly Cherry Evans. And it's a selection that I didn't agree with at the time. I didn't think Daly was going anywhere near the selection that he received. And he was dropped from game one, and one of the biggest calls we've seen in Queensland Origin history to sack their captain.
A massive call. And at the time, I thought he should have been retained. I thought he deserved that. But you look back at it now in hindsight, Tommy Dearden was magnificent in those two games he played. Tonight, Tommy Dearden played out of his skin. I mean, if you're picking an Australian side tomorrow and you didn't know anyone, Tommy Dearden would be a halfback, not Nathan Cleary. He was that good. So, I mean, it's a masterstroke by Billy. And I talked about coaching. Billy's been under the pump in this series. Our great mate Aaron Woods called him a grub, called all sorts of drama. He lost game one. But Billy has again shown, after last year getting out-coached by Madge, he dominated Laurie in this series. And he's shown he's a force to be reckoned with, Billy Slater.
The other thing too, Mick, is, and now that we're talking about it, it's probably worth stating that Billy has beaten Laurie on the selection table here, because he made adjustments even after winning in Perth. Billy did. He made that. I mean, you don't even consider that. You win in Perth, you arguably stick with the same team. But Billy said no. Out comes Mo Fodawaker, Josh Papali in, and Guillemot Shibasaki from nowhere into this Queensland Origin side, and I think they're ballsy moves. Yeah. And it might be a case of whether Laurie Daley has to go down some ballsy moves next year as well. Isaiah Katoa, does he start to get a look in? Mick, I just saw on the selection table, Billy nailed it.
Yeah, as Reedy said, it's probably the first time, that Billy Slater's had adversity in terms of his coaching career. He had a dream run to start, then lost, got out manoeuvred by Madge last year, and this year after game one, there was talks that, well, if Billy loses this series, he could be gone as Queensland coach, and then pulled the ultimate gamble, something that's very rarely seen, particularly from Queensland, dumping a captain mid-series, and Tom Dearden walks away as the player of the series. So, it's been really interesting to watch Billy coach off the back foot and then gain that momentum. Yep. It's a different series win for him, and it just stamps his class and his prospects that he ever wanted to become an NRL coach. He's done it potentially the easy way. Now he's done it the hard way, and it sets him up beautifully.
I'll say, Dad, the other huge decision was to make Cameron Munster captain. You wrote about it, and when you wrote it, I thought you were a lunatic, right? You got Harry Grant could be captain, Tino Fasua-Malawi. They had so many captains of that team. Cameron Munster is not a captain, right, of his club side. But the way he led and the way he lifted after being appointed captain, I mean, it was unbelievable, Cameron Munster. And tonight we saw him after the death of his father only a matter of days ago. He comes out and plays like he did tonight. There was footage of him, looked like him and Billy Slater were both crying after full time. I mean, Cameron Munster was already a great, a Queensland great. He's wearing that number 6 jersey that's so, Lewis, Lockyer. Mate, he's Wally was the greatest for me, right? And I would never dare mention Cameron Munster in that breath, but my God, he's close to him now after what he's produced tonight.
And that's why I went down that path, Reedy, because he's get on my back type of player and come with me, and that's what Wally Lewis was. You know, he dragged an entire state on his shoulders, and Cameron's got that capability. He certainly did that. He's proven that now with the series and the Shield sitting in the Queensland dressing room. His leadership was incredible, absolutely incredible. Mick, where do the Blues go? Like, what? For me, I don't think they move on Laurie Daley. I know there'll be a lot of debate around it. I think it'll almost come back to Laurie. I honestly think it'll come back to Laurie. For everyone out there, he's contracted with the New South Wales Rugby League for next year. I think it would be a case of Laurie going to the New South Wales Rugby League and say, hey, I'll step away. Yeah. I don't think they'll move on him.
No, I don't think they will. And as you said, he agreed to a 2-year deal when he took on the job again. And, you know, if we're sitting here in 12 months' time and they lose a series, well, that's done and dusted. It's quite clear for New South Wales. I think he'll coach again next year. But it's as you intimated, look at the Qatar. Like, we're so far away from picking Origin sides, right? Yeah. Like, it is crazy to forecast it. But these are guys that will come into the mix next year. And, you know, if Nathan Cleary doesn't get the job done next year, also his position will, I don't think he becomes a dead set certainty for New South Wales.
I just want to go back to Munster and now the run for the Melbourne Storm. And for me, I don't know. I can't even predict how Cameron Munster's emotion and energy is going to be in the next 48 hours. I mean, if I'm him, I'm going to bed and I'm not waking up for the next 2 days. Yeah. The Storm play Newcastle on.
You ain't Munster.
No, I am not Cameron Munster.
You'll be having a few beers.
Well, I just think the emotional toll, the energy. He'll be completely drained.
I can't imagine he plays.
If he plays against Newcastle, we are talking about a superhuman.
I think Cam will have the weekend off. Xavier Coates isn't playing this weekend. I imagine a few of these boys will have a weekend off for Melbourne because they've got a big end of the season to come. They're a massive chance of winning the comp. And, after the momentum those guys have picked up tonight, they're going to be real hard to stop as this year goes on. But, I cannot imagine Cameron Munster plays this weekend. He's got a funeral early next week, I think, his father's funeral, so he's got to prepare for that.
Fellas, just on a New South Wales aspect and the Penrith Panthers, we all expect this momentum and this wave of excitement around the Panthers getting into the 8 and causing chaos once they get there, once they get to the finals. Does the Origin series impact that momentum?
Nah, I don't think so. They've been here before. They've seen it plenty of times. It'll take some sting out. Obviously, we're not sure about Liam Martin's injury, as IO was sort of limping from the field as well when he walked up the tunnel. So, that's going to be the concern for him, not their ability to get back up again, because I think we've seen it over the last 4 or 5 weeks, the Penrith Panthers, their ability to rise to the occasion again. I still think they can go deep in this competition.
Well, the other issue is Nathan Cleary, right? I mean, we don't know how bad Nathan Cleary is, because sometimes in these situations it's masked how serious the injury is. And I mean, as I said, he looked limited tonight, so he'll probably, I would imagine he will need a rest at some point, and they really can't afford to rest him. Yep. So it's a real dilemma for them.
Is it a case of the fact that the Blues were so bad that it won't linger as long, if you know what I mean? If it was a tight, emotional loss, golden point here in the decider in front of 83,000 and they just go so narrowly close, the emptiness in that dressing room might be vastly different to being just completely played off the park.
No, I think you're unsatisfied, because sometimes you can play your best and lose, and there's a contentment around that in a way, but when you dish up that sort of performance, that's got to linger, and it should linger, and it should hurt.
Yeah, I'm with you, Mick. I think the way they performed, the nature of that effort, I think that's going to sting and it's going to hang with them. And they, the other thing is they know what's coming. These guys have been around long enough. They know the next few days they are going to get bombarded. Yep. They're going to get bombarded by media, negative press, and that they've got to deal with that as well. So I think it's going to hang around for a little while yet.
Do you think we will see a greater dissection into the preparation of the Blues? The focus was very much on Brian To'o and Payne Haas, who hardly trained ahead of Origin 3. And in a decider, is that the type of prep that such key figures for this side that you would want? That's probably a question for the coaching staff and the high performance staff. I mean, they're obviously professionals. But I don't know, these are the type of questions that will be asked.
I just don't know how you avoid that right, Dave, because you're not ruling Payne Haas or Brian To'o out, are you, early in the week? You want to give them every opportunity. So they're on a hide into nothing in that situation. Obviously, in an ideal world, they train, they complete every session, but If that's not available to him, I just can't see how you make a decision to pull someone like Payne Haas out of the game.
Yeah. I think it's going to be discussed. I think, clearly a few guys in that team weren't 100%. And I think maybe it's a sign of that, and I don't like to say this, but maybe it's a sign they took Queensland a little too easy. They thought it's a matter of turning up here. We can carry blokes into the game who aren't 100% and win the footy game. And it bit them on the butt, to be honest. And maybe Laurie will learn a lesson out of it. I mean, Craig's here as well, right? I imagine Craig doesn't need to learn any lessons, right? I mean, he's one of the greatest coaches the game's ever seen, and he's every lesson that needs to be learned, Craig's learned it. But maybe it's just a little reminder for those guys that you can't afford to take wounded players into Origin because it will get you.
Yep. One thing I wouldn't mind seeing changed as far as Laurie Daley going forward into next year's series is taking ownership of his own prep, and what I mean by that is getting out of the Blue Mountains. And this was an inherited preparation from the Michael Maguire era. They were under contract, New South Wales Rugby League up with the Fairmont Resort.
You're just filthy because you went up there on Saturday morning. It was about 5 degrees.
It was 3 degrees. However, Laurie Daley needs to take ownership of his prep. And I'm not saying he didn't in the Blue Mountains, but it felt as though he was inheriting a lot of Madge's what worked from the previous series. Now that it didn't work this year, I'm sure everything is going to be dissected and put under the spotlight, including possibly moving out of the Blue Mountains for every preparation.
Yeah, they'll look at it. They'll look at everything, Dave, won't they? And I can't blame. You'd have to sit there and look at the preparation. I'm not sure, but that performance just lacked energy for mine.
Oh, flat.
How do you come out in an Origin game flat, unenthused? There was a moment in the second half where the Blues had some sort of momentum. They put a kick deep in the in-goal, and somehow Coates races out because Connor Watson led the chase by himself. How is that possible in an Origin decider that you don't have that energy?
Yep.
Like, that's poor. That's poor, and the players have to take ownership on that, not just the coaching staff.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think Blue Mountains, Coogee, I don't think it matters, right? I don't. A lot of the people who are involved with Madge and involved in the Blue Mountains experience were there with Laurie. But I tell you what, I can imagine. Laurie, I remember after maybe it was the first or second series, I remember he took it so hard he got shingles, right?
Yeah.
I can imagine what Laurie, the next few weeks and months are going to be like for Laurie, because you speak about that game lingering. Mate, it is going to linger with him for a long time, because at least the Penrith blokes can go out and play footy this weekend. Yeah. Laurie's got no footy to prepare for. He's got nothing to prepare for in terms of footy and coaching. So it's going to hurt Laurie. This is going to linger with him for a long time.
Guys, on the back of this incredible series win by Queensland and led by their coach, who was on the back foot after Origin 1, and he was the focus of so much criticism going into Origin 2, he now suddenly finds himself with one more series to go in his contract. That's next year's series. On the back of this, I can see the QRL immediately extending his contract. What do you think?
Lifetime deal, Dave. Lifetime deal. Give him what he wants.
Everyone wanted him gone after game one.
It's amazing how it turns.
Don't you be caused trouble. He's a genius, right? I mean, I think we've shown we doubted him after last year. Plenty of us did. I mean, I even had a little bit of a flicker of doubt, right? But he's shown that he is a genius, Billy Slater. And mate, these guys play for him. You saw it tonight. You saw, as I said, after full time, him and Cameron Munster embrace. They're in tears. I mean, that shows you what he means to this playing group. And that's rare, right? I mean, that's hard to get that sort of devotion from your players and buy-in from your players. And he's got it. Yep. And when you've got that, that's half the battle.
Yeah, and it wasn't just like the emotion after the game. It was the last-ditch efforts, the way they kept turning up and scrambling. When
after the last game, they said we did it for our coach. We had to do it for our coach. You know?
Yeah.
Go on. Sorry.
Yeah. No.
I'm just excited, Nick.
Oh, you should be, and you should be excited. And the only thing that will stop Billy Slater from coaching at this level is if he decides to answer an NRL call-in. That would be the only. I'd love to see him coach in the NRL. I'd love to see him go week to week at that level, replace Craig Bellamy and see what happens at the Storm there. But he's elite. He's the Blues got schooled again tonight.